Before we officially kick things off today, we do have a mandatory statement to make. This podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
Exactly. We are here strictly to explore the material, analyze the sources, and just, see what we can learn together.
Right. Okay, let's get into it. I want to start by setting a scene for you. And I don't mean the setting of the document we're reading today, though we will definitely get there. I mean your setting, right now. I want you to picture a scenario.
Okay, I'm listening. Lay it on me.
Picture this. It's a Monday. You know that very specific flavor of Monday exhaustion?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just that you're tired from the weekend. It's a deep, heavy, kind of existential drag. Your brain just feels like wet cement. You're staring at a screen or a blank page or even just a pile of laundry, and the idea of producing anything creative or intelligent feels physically impossible. You just want to crawl under a weighted blanket and disappear.
Yeah, I think everyone listening has been exactly there. That is the classic resistance, the Monday slump, the battery is at 10% and the charger is completely busted.
Exactly. Now imagine you are in that state. You are operating purely on fumes. And then, out of nowhere, completely unprompted, you get hit by a psychic bolt of lightning.
Bolt of lightning?
Metaphorically, but also kind of physically. Imagine a surge of high-voltage energy so intense that it feels like it's going to shoot you straight through the drywall of your house. You go from, I can't keep my eyes open, to, I am vibrating at a frequency that might shatter glass in the span of an hour.
That is quite the transition. We're talking about going from 0 to 1,000 in the blink of an eye. It's like trying to jumpstart a bicycle with a nuclear reactor.
That is the specific trajectory of today's deep dive. We are looking at a session that starts off feeling like a sleepy, reluctant Monday night fumble, just a couple trying to get through the evening, and it ends up being one of the most high-energy, almost chilling experiences in the entire history of the source material.
It really is. It's a session that completely dismantles the idea of human limits.
Yeah.
It starts with, I'm too tired, and it ends with, I am infinite.
So let's introduce our source. We are doing a forensic analysis of session 406. This is found in the early sessions book 8 of the Seth Material.
And the date is crucial here. This was recorded on April 22, 1968.
1968. I mean, just think about the context outside that room for a second. The world is effectively on fire. You have the Vietnam War protests raging. The civil rights movement is at a boiling point. Martin Luther King Jr. had been assassinated just weeks before this session. The counterculture is exploding. Everyone is looking out there at the chaos in the streets.
Right. It was a year of massive external upheaval. And we're not taking any political sides on those events, just noting the extreme historical temperature. But in Elmira, New York, in a quiet apartment, Jane Roberts and her husband, Rob Butts, are doing something arguably just as radical. They aren't looking out at the riots. They are looking inward.
Yeah.
And they aren't taking psychedelics to do it.
No drugs involved at all. Just a middle-aged couple, a few glasses of beer, and a direct voice channel to another dimension. So let's set the scene in the room. It is 9:15 at night. Jane Roberts, the medium for this entity known as Seth, is just wiped out.
Wiped out is putting it mildly. She is cooked.
She literally tells her husband, Rob, if Seth can get anything out of me tonight, he'll be doing good. She is actively lowering expectations. She's basically telling him, don't get your hopes up, honey. I've got nothing left in the tank.
Which is fascinating when you think about the mechanics of mediumship. We tend to think of these people as radios or machines. You turn on the switch, the spirit talks, you turn it off. But Jane is a biological organism. She has rhythms, moods, blood sugar levels, hormones. She's clearly skeptical that she can even enter a trance state, given how drained she feels.
And Rob, I just love Rob in these transcripts. He's the ultimate dutiful scribe. He's trying to be helpful. He sees his wife is exhausted, so he digs up these old notes from 1964.
Right. He brings up the inner senses.
It's like, honey, you look tired. Let's just do a review session. Let's go over the ABCs again. No heavy lifting tonight.
It's exactly that. It's the student bringing old homework to the professor, hoping for an easy grade. He thinks, if I give Seth a topic we have already covered, it won't tax Jane's energy. It's a very sweet gesture, really. He is trying to protect her.
He is. But spoiler alert, Seth is not interested in a review session. He takes those metaphorical notes, crumples them up, throws them in the trash, and decides that tonight, this tired Monday night, is the night he's going to drop the syllabus for the nature of the entire universe.
And not just the universe. He reveals something about his own identity, and by extension, the nature of consciousness, that changes the entire game.
So our mission today is to track this arc. We need to figure out how a tired woman becomes a conduit for what Seth calls a psychic warp. We are going to break this down into a few key areas. Let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We have to start with this lethargy. Jane is dragging. She's late starting. She's sitting in her rocker, maybe rubbing her temples. But then she closes her eyes. Does the tiredness just vanish instantly?
Not exactly. Seth comes through, but he doesn't ignore the fatigue. He addresses it directly. And this is what I love about Seth. He isn't just a cosmic lecturer, he's a psychologist. He diagnoses the tiredness immediately.
What's the diagnosis? Because if I am tired, it's usually because I didn't sleep or I stared at a screen too long.
Seth says it is not physical. He tells Rob that Ruburt, which is his name for Jane, is reacting to a halt.
A halt? That sounds ominous, like a system error or a roadblock.
It sounds negative, yeah, but Seth reframes it entirely. He explains that Jane is in a state of shock because she has been brought up short. To really understand this, we have to look at what was happening in Jane's career at the time. She was a writer, a serious, aspiring writer.
Right. She wasn't trying to be a mystic. She wanted to be a novelist. She wanted to be on the bestseller list for sci-fi or poetry.
Exactly. And she had been working on a book for a major publisher, Doubleday. This is the big leagues. And just before this session, she decided to put that book aside.
Whoa. Okay. For anyone listening who writes or creates, you don't just shelve a book for Doubleday on a whim. That is a career-altering decision. That is literally walking away from a golden ticket.
It's terrifying. But she shelved it to focus on writing a book about the Seth material itself.
Yeah.
Seth explains that her lethargy, that feeling of wet cement you described earlier, is actually her system recalibrating. She's trying to assimilate this massive change in direction.
So the tiredness is a symptom of a software upgrade.
That is a perfect analogy. Seth tells them that the true event wasn't the letter to the publisher or the manuscript decision. The true event was the psychological realization that her work had to change. The internal shift is the earthquake. The physical lethargy is just the aftershock.
I love how Seth frames this. He is incredibly supportive, but he's also brutally honest. He says Jane literally could not have written this Seth book earlier. I have the quote right here. He says, "I am going slowly here so as not to offend his sensibilities," referring to Jane. "He could not have done earlier the kind of book he will do now. His understanding and even his writing abilities were simply not up to it."
Ouch.
Right. Imagine a spirit guide telling you, yeah, you were too mediocre to do this 3 years ago.
It is blunt, but it's actually deeply comforting if you really think about it.
How so? Because getting called out for not being good enough doesn't sound super comforting to me.
Because we often beat ourselves up for wasting time. We think, why didn't I start this project 5 years ago? I am so behind. Seth is arguing that you literally could not have done it sooner. The value fulfillment, that's a key Seth term, the idea of potential seeking expression, hadn't matured yet. You weren't ready. The delay wasn't procrastination. It was preparation.
That is a huge perspective shift. So Jane isn't failing by being tired. She is buffering. She is processing the fact that she is no longer just a fiction writer. She is becoming the voice of something much larger.
Precisely. She is shifting gears from a consumer vehicle to a race car. And the engine is stalling for a second while the transmission catches up. And once that halt is acknowledged, once the resistance is named, Seth is ready to move. He doesn't want to talk about Jane's fatigue anymore. He wants to talk about reality with a capital R.
Which brings us to the next part of this deep dive. I call this the syllabus. Or, Rob, throw away those notes.
Poor Rob really tried. He wanted to talk about the inner senses. And Seth basically says, no, we're going to do something much bigger. We're going to talk to the camouflage system.
Camouflage. This is a word that comes up a lot in the source material. But he doesn't use it the way the Army uses it. What does Seth mean by camouflage?
It is one of his most fundamental concepts. Seth posits that the physical world, the chair you were sitting in, the microphone, the walls, even your own physical body, is camouflage.
Wait, camouflage hides things. Are you saying the physical world is hiding reality?
In a way, yes. But think of it more like a user interface on a computer. When you look at your computer screen, you see folders, a trash can icon, a mouse pointer. That is camouflage. It's a graphical representation that allows you to interact with the system. But the reality of the computer is electrical impulses and binary code. You can't interact with the raw code directly. You need the icons.
Okay, that makes sense. So physical matter is the icon that consciousness uses to interact with this reality.
Exactly. Seth says reality turns itself into camouflage. It constructs physical matter so that we have a stage to play on. But the mistake we make, the error of human science and religion, is that we think the icons are the reality. We study the atoms of the chair and think we are studying the universe, but we are just studying the pixels on the screen.
We are analyzing the paint on the stage set and completely ignoring the playwright.
Better yet, we are ignoring the actor. Satan wants to teach them how to see what is showing through the camouflage. He wants them to see the code behind the matrix. He says his plan for future sessions is to teach them how to recognize the reality that exists within the camouflage system.
And this leads to some very weird, almost sci-fi concepts. He starts talking about apex points. This sounded straight out of Interstellar to me.
This is where the session gets technical.
Yeah.
He talks about the interrelationship between different systems of reality. She says there are contact points, he calls them apex points, that connect these systems.
Like wormholes.
Very similar. He claims these can be mathematically arrived at. He says, and I want to read this clearly, in some distant future of yours, these will serve as contact points, in some cases taking the place of space travel.
Hold on. Taking the place of space travel.
Think about it. 1968. The space race is peaking. Apollo is gearing up. The entire collective imagination of humanity is focused on building giant rockets to push tin cans through a vacuum to get to the moon.
Right. Fire, thrust, G-force. It is all about overcoming distance with brute force.
And here is Seth quietly saying, that's the hard way. He's suggesting that if you understand the nature of the camouflage, if you understand the software code of reality, you don't need to travel across space. You find these mathematical corners or apex points, and you simply shift. You bypass space entirely.
Teleportation? Or
No.
dimensional jumping?
Essentially, yes. It's a
Yes.
radical idea. He's saying we're trying to traverse the screen of the computer, pixel by pixel, when we could just use a hyperlink to jump to the next page.
That is mind-bending. And he doesn't stop with space. He goes after time and God. He just casually dismantles the two biggest pillars of human existence on a Monday night.
He does. His take on time here is very specific. He says, you must deal with your idea of time and manipulate within it while you hold it valid. When you realize it is not valid, then instructions will be useless.
When you realize it is not valid, that breaks my brain a little bit. It's one thing to say time is relative, like Einstein. It's another to say it is not valid.
It is the Monopoly analogy.
The what?
Monopoly, the board game. While you are playing the game, you have to follow the rules. You have to pay rent, you have to go to jail, you have to pass go, you have to manipulate within it while you hold it valid. But the moment you realize, wait, I am not a literal thimble and this money is just pink paper, the rules dissolve. The instructions for how to win Monopoly become useless because you realize the game itself is a construct.
So Seth is telling us how to win the game, but also telling us the game isn't real.
He's telling us that we are creators of the game, not just pieces on the board.
And then, God. He introduces this term, pyramid consciousness, Gestalt.
It is a mouthful.
It sounds like a corporate organizational chart from a fever dream. What is a pyramid consciousness Gestalt?
He's trying to break us out of the anthropomorphic cabin. We want God to be a person, a father, a king, a judge. Seth says, no. Think of a gestalt. A gestalt is a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts.
Like a choir. A choir is made of individual voices, but the choir is a singular entity.
Yes, but imagine if the choir was also conscious of itself as a single being, while every singer remained an individual. Seth describes a unified psychic consciousness from which all other consciousness emerges. But here is the kicker. It is not static. It is not a finished statue sitting in heaven. It is constantly creating and being created.
So God is growing.
Yes,
Yeah.
through us. Every time you experience something, every time you create a new reality, the gestalt expands. It is a process of value fulfillment. It's a dynamic living system, not a ruler on a throne.
That is a massive amount of information to take in. And I think Seth realizes that because right after dropping this heavy metaphysical bomb, he cracks a joke.
He does. He is talking to Rob about the work involved in organizing all this material, because Rob is the one who has to handwrite and then type all this up, and he says, your work is cut out for you, and I am the scissors.
I am the scissors. That is actually pretty funny.
It's great. It shows his personality. He isn't this doom and gloom prophet. He's witty. He knows he's giving Rob a mountain of work transcribing, organizing, typing, and he's playfully acknowledging his role as the instigator. I cut the pattern. You have to sew it together.
It grounds the whole thing. It reminds you that this is a relationship between personalities. But the vibe doesn't stay light for long. We move into the next phase of the session, which is all about children's fairy tales.
This is where the session really pivots.
Rob notices a change in Jane right here. She isn't the tired woman anymore.
No. He writes in his notes that Jane's delivery becomes sharper, much more rapid. The lethargy is completely gone. The software upgrade we talked about earlier, it is complete. The data is streaming in fast now.
And Seth makes a claim that frankly sounds a little insulting. He says current ideas of reality are like children's fairy tales.
It sounds condescending, but I don't think he means it that way at all.
How else can you take it? He is calling our science and our religion bedtime stories.
Think about why we tell fairy tales to children. We use them to explain complex moral truths using simple symbols. We talk about the big bad wolf to warn about danger. We talk about the princess to talk about virtue or value. The wolf isn't real. The princess isn't real. But the lesson is real.
So Seth is saying that atoms and gravity and heaven and hell, these are just our versions of the big bad wolf.
Exactly. He is saying that the symbols we use, whether it's the Christian God or the Bohr model of the atom, are just props. They are simplified stories we tell ourselves to explain a reality that is far more complex than our brains can currently handle. We use God to explain creation. We use atoms to explain structure, but neither is the actual thing.
We are clinging to the storybook version of the universe because the real version is too scary or too complex.
Too alien. And this leads to a specific warning Seth gives Jane. He tells her to stop reading spiritualistic literature. He tells her to avoid books about mediums.
Which is deeply ironic. You would think a spirit guide would say, hey, go read what the other spirits are saying. Join the club.
Right. Go check out the competition. But Seth is adamant. He says those books are highly camouflaged and distorted.
Distorted how? Is he saying other mediums are fake?
Not fake, but polluted by human bias. He says if Jane reads a book that talks about angels and devils and spheres of light, those images get stuck in her subconscious. Then when Seth tries to send a raw concept of energy-pure, unadulterated data, Jane's brain might automatically translate it into an angel with wings.
It is a translation error. He wants to keep the channel clean.
He wants to avoid the middleman of symbols. He wants to give them what he calls direct experience in concepts.
Direct experience in concepts, he hyphenates that. It sounds important.
It is the core of his teaching method. He says there is always a loss of meaning when you put a concept into words. Words are just symbols. They are camouflage. You can describe the taste of an orange for 1,000 years, but it is not the same as eating the orange. He wants Jane to feel the reality directly.
Which explains what happens next, because she gets the direct experience. And honestly, it sounds terrifying. We are moving into the identity reveal and the energy surge.
This is the climax of the session. Up until now, it has been a lecture, a fascinating lecture, but words on a page. Now the atmosphere in the room changes physically.
Rob notes that Jane's voice becomes loud and staccato. Her eyes are wide and dark. This isn't cozy anymore. And Seth says this line, I am the Seth that I say I am, but I am also more.
But I am also more. That sends a shiver down the spine.
What does he mean? Isn't he just Seth?
He is explaining that the personality they know, the witty, conversational guy who jokes about being scissors, is just a mask. It is a focus. It's a user-friendly avatar constructed so that he can communicate with limited human consciousness without blowing their fuses.
So Seth is just the interface.
Correct. But the real entity, the total consciousness behind the mask, is vast. It extends way beyond what they know. It connects to those pyramid gestalts. And tonight, he decides to pull the mask off.
And he talks about this mechanism in Jane. He calls it a peculiar corner in her personality, a psychic warp.
This connects back to his earlier comment about space travel and apex points. He is saying that within Jane's psyche, there is a literal wormhole, a warp in dimensions. He calls it an apex point within her personality.
A psychic warp. It sounds like something from Star Trek, but he is talking about the human mind.
He is. And he says that tonight, the contact is particularly good. The warp is open.
And because it is open, there is an access to energy far beyond that which is usually experienced.
He says, there is a warp in your dimension, an open system, and through that open door, the raw energy of the entity is pouring in.
This is where the chilling part comes in for me, because this isn't just Seth chatting anymore. The energy is pouring through so hard that Seth, or the entity behind Seth, actually gets urgent. He tells Rob, even if I continue to speak, end the trance.
That is unheard of, even if I continue to speak.
It is like a safety override. He is saying, I might not be able to stop myself, so you have to pull the plug.
It shows the sheer momentum of the energy. It is a high-voltage current, and Jane is a standard household wire. She isn't rated for this voltage. If it keeps going, she is going to burn out. It suggests that the entity is so powerful that once it starts flowing, it's like a freight train. It cannot just stop on a dime.
So Rob has to act. This brings us to the physical aftermath. This is the wild part.
Rob follows the protocol. He calls her name, Jane. Nothing.
He calls her again. Nothing. Her eyes are open, dark, staring at nothing.
He touches her ankle.
And she jumps.
Very nearly violently, Rob writes. Imagine that scene. It is late at night. The room is quiet. She is completely checked out, and a simple touch makes her body jolt like she has been electrocuted.
And when she finally comes back, her description of how she feels is just bizarre. It is pure body horror, but mixed with wonder. She talks about elephantiasis.
This is actually a known phenomenon in deep altered states. It is sometimes called Alice in Wonderland syndrome. The subject feels their body parts are distorted in size.
Jean felt her head was massive. She held her hands a foot away from her ears to show Rob where she felt her ears were. My ears are out here, Rob.
It is a breakdown of proprioception, the sense of where your body is in space. Because she wasn't in her body in the normal way, she was expanding. The warp had distorted her sense of self.
And then the sensation of shooting through the wall.
She said she felt that if she stood up, the energy would launch her straight through the physical wall. Not walk through it, shoot through it, like a cannonball.
That is the direct experience Seth promised. She wasn't learning about energy, she was the energy.
Exactly. She describes it as coming from great depths and feeling not me. Usually she says Seth feels cozy, like putting on a comfortable old coat this time. It was vast, it was powerful, it was alien.
And when she says alien, she doesn't mean little green men, she means foreign.
Right. It was unmia. And this validates the whole session. If Seth had just lectured about high energy, it would have been interesting concepts. But by channeling that energy through her, causing these physical sensations, the leaden feet, the distorted body image, the feeling of propulsion, he proved the point. He showed her what lies beyond the fairy tale of physical limits.
It is the difference between reading about a roller coaster and being strapped into one doing a 90-degree drop.
And that is scary. Jane admits it was slightly scary in retrospect,
Yeah.
but also exhilarating. She used the word wild. She said, it's wild.
It is amazing to think about that progression. She started the night saying, I'm too tired, I can't do this. She was ready to go to bed. And an hour later, she is vibrating with cosmic energy, feeling like she could phase through solid matter.
It really highlights the capacity of human consciousness. We think we are these limited, tired little creatures who just want to get through Monday. But Seth is showing us that we are sitting on top of a psychic warp that connects us to something infinite. We just usually keep the door locked.
Which brings us back to the fairy tale.
It does.
So let's wrap this up. We have covered a lot. The lethargy, the camouflage, the warp. What are the big takeaways here?
I think there are three major takeaways we can pull from this. Let me just lay them out as a list. Bullet point 1, the halt. If you are feeling stuck or lethargic, it might not be a bad thing. It might be your psyche preparing for a massive upgrade. Don't fight the lethargy. Listen to it. Maybe you are just buffering.
That is so important for creative people to hear. And the next point.
Bullet point 2, reality as we know it, meaning time, space, solid objects, is a camouflage system. It is a user interface. It is useful because you need it to navigate life, but it is not the bedrock truth. Don't confuse the icon for the code. There are apex points where the rules change entirely.
And the final one.
Bullet point 3, the Seth we hear, or even the version of us we know, is just a corner. A small, comprehensible corner of a much larger pyramid consciousness gestalt. And sometimes, if we are lucky or unlucky, we get a glimpse of the raw voltage behind the mask.
It really makes you wonder if the personality you think you are is just a corner of something much larger, and your daily reality is just a fairy tale you tell yourself. What happens when you decide to turn the page?
That is the real question. And I think that is where the adventure really begins for anyone diving into this material.
We will leave you with that thought to chew on, and on that note, we want to give credit where credit is due. This deep dive was based on the Seth Material and the publisher New Awareness Network.
These sessions are incredibly dense and rewarding. We have only scratched the surface today. We strongly encourage you to study the Seth Material books directly. Don't just take our word for it. You can find them and visit the bookstore at sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions.
Go check it out. Read the original transcripts. There's nothing quite like it. Thanks for taking this journey with us, everyone.
Get curious.
And watch out for those lightning bolts. See you next time.